Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of the AI Files, where we explore the fascinating world of artificial intelligence and its impact on various fields within our educational institution. I am your host, Corey Gill, and today I have a fantastic guest from the Faculty of Skilled Trades and Apprenticeship, Ed Logan. Ed is at our Whitby campus, for those of you that are familiar with the way we're set up, but I'd rather let him tell you a little bit more about what he does over there. So, Ed, if you don't mind sharing a little bit about your background and maybe what started you on the path of using AI.
Yeah, thanks, Corey, for having me. Yeah, I'm Ed Logan. I'm down at the Whitby campus at Durham College, and currently a professor, full-time professor in the plumbing programs. I'm also the coordinator for all plumbing programs, which is post-secondary, as well as apprenticeship, and as well as our steam fitter apprenticeship. And I've been doing that since about 2015, and just like everybody else, uh, has been impacted by the world of AI in front of us. And actually, just a little funny story. When I was really impacted by AI, when kind of more the chat GPT kind of exploded, I was in the middle of my master's program. So I've definitely got an interesting lens on the kind of student end as well as the faculty end.
I love that. That's an interesting take there too, is to be in school when it happened and start maybe using it for your own assistance, and that have anything to do with your inspiration to use AI tools, or um, was it something
Yeah,
else?
yeah, definitely. Because the what my master's was in learning and technology, so I've always been a bit of a technology kind of bug person. I guess back in the day, even when the internet came to effect, I was always excited to jump on and try different tools. So, within my own teaching practice, I kind of already used some ed tech type of tools, and so when there was something new to try out and discover, I was very keen because based on some of the other stuff I had used before. I saw how it could impact me, positively, and in my teaching as well as even as a student when I was a student. And so I had a good sense at that point that it can be beneficial not only just for me as a faculty member or as a program coordinator, but how it could help my students. So I was eager to kind of start the old clicking around kind of thing, I like to call it, and kind of discovering. And initially, when I first came across my first AI, when I was in school as well as teaching at the same time, that's literally what I did. I heard about ChatGPT, let's say, as one of them, and I just went there and okay, let me just go discover this, and Larry just start typing something into the chat box and see what would come out, kind of thing, and just to be curious. And it was quite exciting because to see what would come up, right? So I know myself, I would just do a random thing like. Uh, Towards my own program, like plumbing, I would just type something in, a very maybe one or two sentences about plumbing, just to see what it would come up and what kind of answer it would provide me. And like many people who discover about ChatGPT or any other of the AI tools, I discovered that I had to feed a little bit more information to it because I would get answers that were related to plumbing, but maybe in a different area, maybe in a different country, or like say U.S. So some of the stuff it was giving
Like
me
that.
was somewhat correct, but not specific to the area where I was. So
And that's interesting, and I'm glad you share that because a lot of people don't recognize the whole importance of context, and so you would have found that early, right? Like I'm teaching in Canada, I'm working in Canada. I need to root myself in that, which is fantastic. Um, Now, based on that too, it's we were discussing a little bit before we kind of hopped on the podcast together. I know people who are the skilled trades, more youth up and coming and whatnot. They say to me a lot, "I will never need AI in skilled trades. I don't work like that." And I love that you are proving that wrong. So could you share some ways that you actually use AI to help you in the plumbing courses and how they help your students?
yeah, one of the initial things I started to use it just in my own program as a teacher. I had plans or lesson plans prepared for lessons. So I started just kind of even fooling around just to see what it would create for me. So I would feed information that I wanted to teach that particular day. And as I learned more about attaching documents to the different chat boxes, um, I would see what it would generate just to compare notes to see what I had and how it would approach it. And I found it quite interesting because some of the stuff was similar that I had kind of in mind that they would give me sometimes some creative ideas of way of teaching things, and even within my own program, one of the things that we do with my students is I have them do a research slash presentation, and depending on the levels, one might be on pipe materials, one might be on plumbing fixtures, and it's not a very big project, and it's a small presentation that they have to do, but as I looked at it as an opportunity because I knew that right away that my students could use this tool, right? They know about it. They're probably fooling around with it too, fiddling around with it. And so I use it as an opportunity to say, as I always say with all our stuff, it's these tools are available to us to help us to make us better. And so when I want you to do this presentation or this research project, I expect you actually to use this tool and along with your other tools, other resources, whether it be code references or reaching out to people, reaching out to manufacturers. I said, I actually want you to use this tool, and in my next iteration, which is coming up in the fall, I actually want to take a time in the class to really actually show my students how to use it. So I'm thinking this is probably as an advantage for me to say, here, I want you to show you a couple of things. You may already know this, but I want to make sure you guys know some basics that I've learned, how you can, properly use it to make it more effective. Kind of using like my mistakes where I typed in stuff. I typed in one time about ABS pipe or ABS, and that's a type of material, but it came up about talking about ABS brakes
Right.
and stuff, right? So a simple
Right.
thing where I know that some people might just go, okay, that's great, and they would copy and paste it into their into their information and make that part, make that part of their presentation. And meanwhile, they're obviously incorrect. And I know there's other opportunities because I always tell my students that in our field that things are changing, that we are using technology. One of the areas where a lot of my students now, they actually use, we used to use blueprints, actual physical prints. Now you're using tablets and they're accessing off tablets or are there any other device like that? And I just let them know it's another tool in their toolbox. So I've discovered just myself, I said, look, you can attach the plumbing code in there as the attachment and then chat, say, hey, I'm looking to see how do I do this? Or what's the code for this?
So
And it's a good way for them quickly search that document and help them with their what their question is.
I like that too because you're starting to bring up the fact that they're using these tools, whether it's an Android-based tablet or an Apple iOS-based tablet. We know now Gemini and Apple Intelligence is being put on these devices, and so to try and lock it down and suggest they don't use it is almost counterintuitive. So reinforcing that they use it, that they make the mistakes, they learn from their mistakes. I love it. That's ideal. So how have the students been in engaging with it, embracing it? What's their experience been like?
I think it's been pretty good. I know I try and chat with them even after like the most recent iteration of that research presentation. I kind of, I always kind of want to go back and just ask them some questions after, maybe not during their presentation or whatever, but I always ask them, where, how was the experience and did you guys use it? And how did you find it kind of thing? And even with other things I've done before in the past, one time I used an AI tool, and the name escapes me right now, but I'll try to remember. It helped me create interactive activities
Awesome.
that I could very similar to H5P Studio that some people would maybe be familiar with, but essentially I could feed a bunch of information to it, and it would make me like 10 or 8 of these types of interactive activities in 30 seconds, basically, and then I could integrate it into um, the learning management system, almost like an add-on. So I remember trying it at one time, and I can't remember if it was for my applied math class. I had one for my applied math class, and I also had one for a topic within our theory-based courses. So we would have our in-person classes, our lectures and whatnot. And I put this extra resource. I said, there's another little interactive activities in there that you can to help reinforce what we learned. It's not necessarily mandatory. I'm not looking for you to necessarily everybody has to do it. It just gives you another opportunity. And I know that some gave me feedback that they were very appreciative. It kind of reinforced what they had learned. And in some cases, actually the light bulb kind of went on then, right? So even
Excellent.
after they had done stuff. So and they even, someone also mentioned to me that it was good for like studying purposes, right? Because there would be interactive quizzes that they could redo and it would give you the answer, or there was flip cards and you could do the afterwards. So, having done H5P Studio before, I thought this is great because instead of me inputting all the information and making all the answers up and all that stuff, it generated it for me, kind of thing. I kind of
Awesome.
attached it some documents and said, I want questions on this, I want interactive activities on this, and it would just generate it.
Awesome. That's incredible. And yeah, and I guess once the skills get kind of enhanced, we can start using what it generates and other AIs to start embedding it in PowerPoints and embedding it in or providing embed codes and whatnot for our LMS DC Connect, which is fantastic. Makes it a little bit more natural. I love seeing students witnessing professors using it because it shows that it is required in the workplace that they need to learn to be educated on it because the employer of the future is probably going to expect them to have that. Now, you talked about some blueprints and you talked about some research. I'm just curious if you have one kind of project itself where it was particularly successful or innovative use of AI that kind of broke a barrier with an aha moment for either yourself or a student or beyond that. So,
Well, I've had those like the ones I mentioned before, but there's another. It's not necessarily a project. I've now used it now to. I've always kind of had this, but like a connection activity, or try to connect my content right at the beginning, kind of following like a jumpstart model. So now I've used it to help with the creativity of those connections
beautiful.
uh, parts, and so they're. I mean, my students are actually they don't maybe know that I'm using the AI to help me create these, but they're obviously getting to do them. So I mean, I had an example where I have a whole bunch of them. I sometimes I do two or three for each topic just to see what it generates, and I literally cut and paste it. It gives me full instructions. I tell them what a connection activity is, and just one that I did recently. We were talking about drainage design systems, and before we started, uh, I kind of tweaked what it said, but basically, essentially, what it helped me set up was I did a comparison, and then I brought my own pictures in, and I compared about designs of things that have changed over time to show that like a car had this is what cars used to be, and this is what cars are today, as we all know. And yes, there are some of those old cars still out there, but there's a lot more of these newer cars out there. But it doesn't mean to show that as we're preparing as I was preparing to show them the different plumbing design systems that are out there, the one we currently use, but there's still the old systems are still there in the older buildings, and why we have to be aware of it. So how everything evolved, but also how things still exist, and we
I
have
like
to
that
adapt.
too. Because if there's old design programs around and they encounter those design programs, well, they're when they land out in the workforce, AI could probably help them understand how to use that platform if they haven't had experience with it.
Yeah.
So I think that's unique as well. I like that. Um, okay, no, that's good. Now it's all been kind of positive and raw and good stuff, and I love that. But I always know there's this kind of dark side to AI, or at least a challenging side to AI. And I'm wondering if you've had any personal challenges with integrating AI into your teaching, and maybe what you've done to challenge or avoid them.
So I've had some challenges over time. One of the challenges I actually had was I wanted I started using one of the other AIs to create these interactive activities. And I said, I want you to put it in this format of this different type of file. And I've had some challenges all around that where the link doesn't work for the file, or if I
Right.
download that file, that those things are not in, or they're in there, but they're not in there in the right format. So there has been some challenges where I'm like, okay, I'm getting closer to what I want. I've done certain activities or certain things I want to do. I've had to do them like 5 or 6 times to really refine it.
Right.
To give you an example, with my plumbing program, our plumbing in Ontario, we had major code change as of January 1st. And we did have a document that was given to us about August of the new code. And then I wanted to use it to to tell me basically what the changes were. To help me assist me that. So
Okay.
I gave it both documents, but and I kind of was detailed, like saying give me a detailed, but it still kind of gave me a high level summary. And so I had
Right.
to keep reworking it and kind of saying, okay, that's great, but could you give me I wanted more line by line, or I want more, more detail. So there has been some challenge where I've gotten frustrated. I'm like, I think I've told you exactly what I want, but you're getting a little bit closer, but it's like baby steps. So sometimes it's been baby steps. So it can be a little bit challenging that way. But as I've discovered in the short period of time I've used it, over the last year or so, year and a half, a lot of them have advanced a lot more.
Right.
So,
Right.
and the one thing I have learned is that there's a couple that I really use all the time, and they know me really well now. So
Right.
when I ask stuff, it already kind of I'm like, how'd you know that? I'm like, oh, that was pretty good. I'm like, oh, that's right, because you already know me. I've already asked you all these questions, so you know I'm a plumbing professor. You know I'm in Ontario now. You know exactly what who I am.
I
So
love
when I
that.
ask you something, you can get it closer to what I want right away. So
Yeah, that's fantastic. And you're absolutely right. And it freaks some people out. So, anybody listening and whatnot, it will get to know you. It is adaptive. I really like the way you've kind of shared it there because I say it to a lot of people too, is almost like a child, like a person. It's learning as it goes. And sometimes it's frustrating, just like people are. And sometimes it knows more about you than you think it does, just like people do. But it's this autonomous self-learning capability out there that has to be coaxed sometimes into performing the way we want it to. So that's good. I like that. I think the message there is stick with it,
yeah,
because eventually you'll get it to come around to your side, right? So
yeah. It's just like having like you're being a parent or having students. You know, eventually there'll be a few of them that you need a little more time, right? Need a little more time to get to know them and understand. So
and then the
it's been
aha
quite
goes
fun.
off.
Yeah,
Yeah,
then it goes
perfect.
off. Yeah,
I love it. I love it. And that it kind of brings me to one of my big questions that I always like to ask people because you're an expert in your field and people think of you about, where's the program going to go and what do we need to be employed. So, what do you see as the future of AI trend in education, specifically in the skilled trades and apprenticeship world?
I definitely think it can be a tool, and whether it be skilled trades or not. Is I know that I have a lot of students that have challenges in learning, and I need to think outside the box a little bit more and to tailor their education. So I think that's one of the ways it's going to help me where I can tailor it maybe a couple of different ways for my learners, but maybe it can help me find that third or fourth way that that's always been
Awesome.
a big thing for me where I've done that kind of already where I try and create my own stuff, or whether it be it's like, okay, I want to share something, now create me a video or this, or create my own video. But now like maybe this can help me think about that, the accessibility for my students. That's kind of one of the key areas where I've looked at lately has been what am I doing now, and is it accessible enough for all my students? Is there another way I can do it, or is there something you can help me create from what I already have and make my life easy, but also make it better for my
Fantastic.
students? So, um, and the other thing is that in any field and the skilled trades, there is a little, like as we mentioned before, a lot of technology coming into play. Um, and that we've all heard this saying probably before a lot, but it won't impact, say, plumbers. Like, I mean, it won't impact them. Like, it won't steal your job, is what I'm trying to say. But the plumber that is using it, whether it's in the actually on the tools or with their actual business and setting that stuff and behind the scenes for administrative stuff, the one who's going to be using it will be employed. And the one who doesn't will not be employed, right? That will be the person that takes over your job or your field. So,
The paradigm behind that because it can make you more efficient in so many things. If you're a member of the union, you can use it to kind of craft the right email communications
yeah,
with your union so that it always puts you in the right light. When you're talking to your customers, it can help you craft it in a authoritative way, and students need to get a hold of that. But I really like the fact that you brought that entrepreneurial angle in there because there's so much complexity to running a business that when you do it, you don't technically want that level of complexity, but it comes with the gig, and AI can certainly make that much more easy. So even if
yeah.
it's not directly related to your profession itself, it's those things surrounding your profession that make you more efficient in it. All right, so that's kind of been a great journey. I love that, but I always have to ask this question as well because we are trying to get more faculty at Durham College to engage and use it, or more faculty in general. What advice would you give other faculty members who are hesitant to either embracing AI for themselves or incorporating it into their classroom?
Yeah, I would probably take the lens of two things. One, if you use it, thinking of it as a way that's going to help your students learn and learn better, or and make it easier for them to learn, which is at the end of the day the root reason why we do the teaching. And also, it's the second part. It essentially could make your job a little bit easier, right? Whether it's I know that myself. I was when I did talk about the connection activities, I could think of stuff, but then I was having like a brain freeze. I couldn't, I could come up with a few things, but then like there it is. I might just punch it in there and it came out with, 20 or 30 ideas. And I'm like, they're very simple, but it took me a long time to think. I would have taken me a long time to think of those simple things. So you can make it a lot easier. The thing that I would recommend too is just to take that little approach that I kind of use, where you just kind of, click around, just, play with it a little bit, just see what it does, put something in the chat, see what it creates. And the other key thing is to look around and talk to your fellow colleagues. I know that's helped me in the past with other ed tech type of tools, was to see, hey, are you using that? And what are you doing with that? And
Excellent.
then say, and let them share their experience, because that can definitely inspire you to realize it's not as fearful or as intimidating or as hard as you think. And
Awesome.
like everything else, we're going to learn. We're going to learn over time. So if you play with it a little bit, you'll learn over time eventually.
Awesome. Great advice. Sage advice, in fact. And that kind of wraps it up for us, Ed. I really do appreciate you joining us. I really like the view. I like the exposure of including your insights into this informative platform.
You're welcome. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
And to our listeners, we hope that you found this discussion enlightening, and we encourage you to explore the use of AI in your own educational and professional contexts. Until next time, I ask you to be curious, be innovative, but make sure you let AI inspire your journey. Thanks.